Welcome to the Wellbeing Podcast, your go-to space for inspiration and motivation and practical tips to live your best life. Today we're diving deep into a concept I think you'll find really intriguing, building momentum before January 1st. You sent over this article about forming habits before the new year hits, and it sparked a ton of great questions. We're going to explore how to build a foundation for success in 2025 without burning ourselves out before the year even begins. To help unpack all of this, we have an expert in habit formation and personal development joining us today.
I'm excited to dive in. There's often so much pressure around New Year's resolutions. This approach feels much more sustainable.
Right. It's like we're setting ourselves up for success rather than setting ourselves up for a fall. So the article really emphasizes momentum. What makes that initial push so important when we're talking about goals?
Think about riding a bike. Getting started, finding your balance, that first push off, it takes the most effort. But once you're rolling, it's much easier to keep going. The same goes for our habits. Momentum helps us break through that initial resistance and makes it easier to stick with things over time.
Okay, so that makes sense on an intuitive level. But what's the science behind this?
Well, Charles Duhigg, who wrote The Power of Habit, talks about this. He found that even small wins trigger a chain reaction of positive behavior. It's like each small victory fuels the next. The article you sent in uses the example of making your bed each morning. Do you have any little habits like that which help you get going?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I'm a big coffee person. But my morning routine really starts with getting some natural light. Even 5 minutes by the window with my coffee makes a difference.
Right.
What about you? Any tiny habits that have a big impact on your day?
I've been trying this thing where I write down 3 things I'm grateful for each morning. It's such a small thing, but it really sets a positive tone for my day.
I love that. Okay, so the article lays out 6 key habits to focus on before the new year. Mindful planning, gradual implementation, physical health, mental well-being, supportive environments, and progress tracking. Let's start with mindful planning. The article stresses the importance of reflecting on the past year. Why is that so crucial?
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of setting new goals. But taking stock of where we've been helps us make more intentional choices about where we're going. It's about asking ourselves, what worked well this year? What didn't? And what do I really want to focus on in the coming year?
It's like creating a roadmap for the year ahead. But we're not just looking at the destination. We're looking at the journey we've already taken and what we've learned along the way.
Exactly. And that reflection helps us set intentions, not just resolutions. Intentions are about aligning our actions with our values, which is far more sustainable than just trying to force ourselves to change overnight.
And speaking of sustainable change, let's talk about gradual implementation. The article highlights B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits method, specifically the concept of habit stacking. Can you explain how that works?
Think of it like attaching a new habit to an existing routine. Let's say you want to start flossing regularly. Instead of trying to create a whole new habit from scratch, you could stack flossing onto something you already do consistently, like brushing your teeth.
So you're basically using the momentum of an existing habit to help propel the new habit forward. I've actually found that works really well with exercise. Instead of thinking, ooh, I have to go to the gym, I've started incorporating little bursts of activity throughout the day, like taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or going for a quick walk during my lunch break.
That's a perfect example, and it ties in perfectly with the next habit, physical health. The article mentions a Harvard study that found even short bursts of activity can significantly benefit both our physical and mental well-being.
It's so encouraging, right? We don't need to run a marathon every day to see results. Small changes can add up to big improvements over time. Speaking of which, how do we fit these new habits into our already busy lives?
That's where being strategic comes in. And that's what we'll explore next. It's about finding those pockets of time in our day and being intentional about how we use them. Instead of scrolling through social media during your commute, maybe you could listen to a podcast or audiobook that aligns with your goals.
You're speaking my language. That's actually one of my favorite ways to sneak in some learning or inspiration. Okay, so we've covered mindful planning, gradual implementation, and physical health. Let's shift gears and talk about mental well-being. This is something the article emphasizes quite a bit. What are your thoughts on this?
Mental well-being is so often neglected, especially when we're striving for big goals. But the article makes a great point. It cites a study from the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology showing that prioritizing mental health isn't just about feeling good, it's about building resilience and the capacity to handle stress effectively.
Yes. It's like we need a strong mental foundation to build on. What are some simple but effective ways we can prioritize our mental well-being, especially during this busy time of year?
Even 5 minutes of mindful breathing can make a difference. There's also a lot of research on the benefits of meditation for reducing anxiety and improving focus. Have you experimented with meditation at all?
I have, and I found it really helpful. It's
Excellent.
like hitting the reset button on my brain. But I'm curious, for someone who's totally new to meditation, where would you recommend they start?
There are so many great apps and guided meditations available online. Starting with a short guided meditation can be a great way to ease into the practice.
I think a lot of people are intimidated by the idea of meditation, thinking they need to sit in perfect stillness for hours. But it's really about finding what works for you. Even a few minutes of focused breathing can make a huge difference. Okay, so the next habit in the article is supportive environments. It highlights the importance of surrounding ourselves with people who uplift and inspire us. What stood out to you about this section?
There's a powerful ripple effect when we surround ourselves with people who are aligned with our goals and values. Their energy, their support, their belief in us. It can make all the difference in the world. It's like having a team of cheerleaders pushing us forward.
It's true. I'm thinking about some of my mentors over the years, people who've really encouraged me to step outside of my comfort zone and pursue my dreams. Their support was invaluable. What about you? Have you had any mentors or people in your life who've played that role?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be where I am today without the guidance and support of several key mentors. They helped me believe in myself even when I doubted my own abilities.
I think a lot of people underestimate the power of mentorship. It's not just about having someone to give us advice, it's about having someone who believes in us, who sees our potential, and who helps us unlock it. Okay, let's talk about the final habit, progress tracking. I found this one so fascinating because it's all about creating visibility for our efforts.
Tracking our progress helps us stay motivated and engaged. It transforms those abstract goals into concrete milestones, giving us a tangible sense of accomplishment.
The article even cites a statistic from the Harvard Business Review that found people who track their progress are more motivated and engaged in their tasks. What are some effective ways to track progress that you've seen work well?
It really depends on the individual and their goals. Some people prefer simple journaling, while others thrive on using apps or spreadsheets. The key is to find a method that feels sustainable and fits our individual preferences. What works for you?
I'm a big fan of visual tracking. I love using habit trackers and seeing those little squares fill up as I make progress. It's incredibly motivating. What about you? Are you more of a visual tracker or do you prefer other methods?
I lean more towards journaling. I find that writing down my progress, reflecting on challenges, and celebrating wins helps me stay connected to my goals. It's a powerful way to track not just what I'm doing, but also how I'm feeling throughout the process.
It's like creating a personal narrative of your journey. So we've covered all 6 habits, and I'm sensing a theme here. It's all about setting ourselves up for success in a way that feels sustainable and empowering.
Exactly. And it circles back to that idea of starting before January 1st. It allows us to create that foundation, build those habits, and step into the new year with a sense of momentum and excitement rather than feeling overwhelmed or pressured.
Okay, but let's get real for a second. We're human, we're going to stumble, we're going to have setbacks. How do we deal with that without throwing in the towel completely?
That's where embracing imperfection comes in. The article actually dedicates a whole section to this, and it's one of my favorite parts. It emphasizes that setbacks aren't failures. They're opportunities for growth.
I love that reframing. So much of the traditional New Year's resolution mindset is about being perfect. And then when we inevitably slip up, we feel like we failed. This approach is so much more forgiving.
It is. It's about recognizing that we're human. We're going to make mistakes. And that's okay. It's how we respond to those setbacks that matters.
The article talks about developing a growth mindset. Can you break that down for us?
A growth mindset is the belief that our abilities and intelligence aren't fixed. They can be developed. It means we embrace challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. Instead of seeing a setback as a sign that we're not good enough, we see it as valuable feedback that can help us improve.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of getting defeated by a setback, we can actually use it as fuel to move forward. The article also encourages us to practice self-compassion, especially when we encounter those inevitable bumps in the road.
Self-compassion is so important, and it ties in beautifully with the growth mindset. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a close friend.
So instead of beating ourselves up when we slip up, we can acknowledge that we're doing our best and offer ourselves support and encouragement. What are some practical ways we can cultivate self-compassion?
Mindfulness is a great tool for this. When we notice those negative thoughts creeping in, I'm not good enough, I'll never reach my goals, we can simply acknowledge them without judgment and gently redirect our focus. The article also suggests creating a self-compassion mantra, something we can repeat to ourselves when we're feeling overwhelmed or discouraged. What's a phrase that resonates with you?
I really like the phrase, progress, not perfection. It reminds me that it's about the journey, not just the destination. It's about those small steps forward, even when they feel messy or imperfect. What about you? Any go-to mantras you use for self-compassion?
One that I find helpful is I am learning and growing. It reminds me that I'm not expected to have it all figured out. It's okay to make mistakes, to stumble, to course correct. It's all part of the process.
And that brings us back to the beauty of starting before January 1st. It gives us that extra space to experiment, to adjust, to find what works for us without the pressure of a formal resolution hanging over our heads. We're building that foundation, that momentum, so when the new year arrives, we're already in motion.
Exactly. And remember, all those small steps we're taking now, those seemingly insignificant actions, they're adding up to something much bigger. They're creating a ripple effect of positive change that will carry us forward into the new year and beyond.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into building momentum before January 1st, I want to leave you with this. What's one tiny habit you can commit to starting today? It could be anything. Make your bed. Go for a walk. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. Whatever it is, choose something that feels doable and aligned with your goals. Remember, you don't need to wait for January 1st to start building the life you want. You can start right now, one small step at a time. Thank you for tuning in to the Wellbeing Podcast. We'll see you next time.